we're streaming to YouTube and the mics are on. We're ready when you are.
I'll call this meeting of the Seward City Council to order. It's 7 p.m. on Monday, August 12th, 2024. Chief, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Barnwell?
Here.
Kreitz is excused. Calhoun?
Here.
Osenga?
Here.
Finch?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Now we're to citizen comments on any subject except items scheduled for public hearing. If you check your agenda, there are 3 public hearing items, and you'll get a chance to speak to those when they come up. You'll have 3 minutes. There's a 36-minute total time for this, and if you've signed in, you'll get the first shot in order, and then I can call on hands. When you come up, we'd ask you to state your name and if you live inside or outside the city limits. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody has signed in to speak.
Okay, is there anyone out there wishing to speak? Just for the TV audience, there are people. Come on.
Becky Gunn, inside the city. First, I'd like to thank everybody up there and everybody behind me too. We have a pretty full house, and I don't know if you can really see that on the YouTube or not. And remind people that council meetings are also available to view later on YouTube, on the City of Seward YouTube channel. And we air them on 106.1 and 91.7 FM radio dial. And wanted to ask for council support for running for PACCAP again. I was on there for a short stint when Fred stepped down, and want to continue on. And remind people that there are 2 seats vacant for city council to pick up a packet. It's a pretty serious packet as compared to PACCAP. And Seward Volunteer Fire Department, SDAC, and Bear Creek Fire Department are all looking for volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Last chance. Okay, seeing none, I'll move us along to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I'd ask for a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes to be made? I'll start. I have one. I'd like to pull the PACCAP applicants from the consent agenda and move them to the regular agenda because we now have 3 applicants for the 2 seats. And this will be considered under number 10, new business, other. It would be item 4, other new business, item 4. So it'll be just about the last thing we consider at our meeting tonight. Are there any other changes? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Clerk, I think we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and on the consent agenda was the July 22nd, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. No grounds for protest to the renewal of the liquor license for the Alaska Seafood Grill, the Gateway Liquor and Food Mart, and the Seward Ale House. And that was all on the consent agenda.
Thank you. And just so the people listening and watching know, if it's been passed on the consent agenda, then that means it's been passed. So if you were watching any of those and wondering if we passed them, we have now. So next, we have no proclamations or awards tonight, but we have a city manager's report on page 5 of the packet. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 2 quick things to report, and then I'd like to invite Brian and Taylor from the electric department up to introduce themselves. You've met Brian before, but Taylor's a new face. But first, I'd like to give a big thank you to the whole Public Works team. Everybody in town may have noticed that we had a lot of rain for the past week or so, and our crew, Doug and his crew, were out at the falls 24/7 for a few days, making sure that all the gravel and debris was removed from that area. So really excited to see some blue skies and dry pavement so that they get a break after that big stretch of weather that we had. I'd also like to let everybody know the mayor and I had a really nice visit with the House and Senate Finance Committee yesterday, as well as some of the top budgetary people from the Coast Guard. So we had lunch with them at Ray's, and then I brought them all over to the Coast Guard FRC Homeport site across the bay at SMIC to show the land that they purchased. And then we also just visited some key points in town to showcase Seward and how awesome and wonderful that Homeport will be once they get that all up and running. Tomorrow morning, I'm flying to Kodiak for the Alaska Municipal League Summer Conference. And with that, I'll invite Brian and Taylor up. Taylor started in July as our operations manager through the Matanuska Electric contract. And Brian, you've met before here and there, but always good to bring another face, or show us facing.
Well, I guess I'll start. So my name is Taylor Crocker, and I'm just really happy to be back in Alaska. I think my family is even more happy, but so kind of a quick history. I was in the Air Force, and that's what brought me into Alaska in the first place. Got out of active duty, went up to North Slope for a few years, got a little oil field experience, and then ended up as a safety specialist with Chugach Electric. And from there, I became a manager in operations. Then COVID hit. My grandpa needed a little bit of help down in Minnesota, and I got a job with Xcel Energy out of Fargo. And we spent some time down in the lower 48, and my family just complained about leaving Alaska the whole time we were there. Saw the opportunity to come back up for MEA and coming down to Seward, which is probably my wife's favorite town in the state, and now we're here. So my family and I live here full-time, available 24 hours a day if anything ever happens. And I have to say, getting to know everyone that's working in the electric department for the city, you have some dedicated employees. And you know, I haven't worked with people that care as much about their community as these people do, probably ever before. So I'm here to help. We're trying to get some data so we can make some good decisions moving forward. And if you have any questions, I'm always available to try to answer them.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll just chime in. I've worked with Taylor at Chugach for quite a while, and he's in my organization. And he's an excellent employee. He's a go-getter, gets stuff done. And he's here all the time, which is really helpful for me and for you all and for the community. And I'm glad he got to get him back to Alaska. It's always a good thing. And he's got a wife who wants to come back to Alaska. That's even better.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks, Patricia.
Good to have you on board.
And that is my city manager report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Bickling, did you have anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time.
Are there questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Calhoun.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate you guys putting the Developer Reimbursement Program fund information in here. The only thing that I would like to get is just a little more clarification on what is actually available in that fund, because, you know, we show a balance in the program fund of about 1.5 million, but it's my understanding, and just so people know, that we really don't have 1.5 million unencumbered dollars in that fund. Is that right?
That's correct. So all of that is encumbered, and so although it does not, where it says there is a balance, all that's been encumbered, and so they just have not used it yet because it's that reimbursement thing and we pay for it up front. So they're just going through as they build the project out, spending the money. So basically we can see how much they've spent thus far of the money that we've dedicated to that. So and in that project actually just I do want to say that Hilltop, we met with them this last week just as a side note, and they are beginning to pay us back as they're finishing their phases and selling lots. So it's already, we're going to be seeing some of that money start to come back in now, into that fund.
Okay.
And that, just to clarify, that, those payments go right back into.
That's correct.
The DRP.
Yes.
And, okay. Good. That was clarification I wanted on that. One other thing, Madam Mayor, thanks. On the information you gave us on the electric fund, again, I appreciate that. And the one thing that I would like to see, if we can get it by the next meeting probably, is a little simpler explanation on what it's going to take to complete the infrastructure project, because it's really kind of what I was asking for, and I may not have clarified that enough. And then how much we actually have towards that, so that it makes it easier for us to plan and look at how we can do that. So,
Great.
yeah.
Potentially my inclination is that we can include that in the next meeting and also add a discussion item for it as well, so we can have some more in-focus discussion on that.
Any other questions, comments? No, I have to say that I've received many compliments about how the dredging or the gravel removal during the big rain was handled, and also compliments to the city manager for her report that appears on, I guess Facebook is where we see it, on the city website too, but.
Yeah, so the city manager newsletter is on Facebook. It's also on the city Facebook page, and then Ashley, the admin, executive admin, sends it out as well through the clerk's notification process.
Yeah. So that's why so many people have been commenting on it, because they're getting that. It's really good because they're keeping up to date, and thank you for that. Any other comments? Okay, moving along, Mr. City Clerk, you've got something on page 21.
Yes, thank you. I didn't have time to type out a written report, so I just included some photos of the Obihiro Student Exchange Group in town. And it was kind of a whirlwind week. They showed up, 4 students plus their chaperone, Chris, and we just started entertaining them and showing them the sights, and now they are in Japan with our 4 students and Jody, and they just landed, and as far as I know, everything's going well. So I'm hoping to have a full report for the next meeting packet.
Okay.
And in other news, the council filing period is still open for candidacy. It ends Thursday, August 15th at 5 p.m.
Okay. I was going to mention in the city manager time, but since there's a picture of me here, I had the privilege of having lunch with Karen and the interpreter and the kids from the Japanese exchange students, and then we took them in the van to see 31 of the 34 murals. It sounds like a really boring thing for high school kids, and with the language barrier, I'm not sure, but they seemed pretty thrilled and amazed at what we had on our buildings. So I got to do that. It's one of the fun things about being mayor. So anyway, thank you. And then we have, the city attorney report. We have him right here.
I do. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful afternoon. I hear that's pretty rare. So a few things, hit 3 high points, I guess, is the electric utility, the Chugat RCA, that case is wrapped up now. Cody in our office did really, good work on that. Kat and I were just talking beforehand about how good work he's doing overall. It's really great to see. I think the other firms who are involved are already trying to hire him. We won't have a decision until the end of September on the rate case. One of the things that I guess we don't talk about very much is when that case first came up and Seward decided to intervene, we were shopping around to all the attorneys who practice that regulatory type of law regularly or have some real specific expertise in that, we're all involved. And so we were looking to places like Seattle and DC, places, firms that that's what they do. And the hourly rates on those things were just astronomical, just kind of unbelievable. And Cody said, well, I think I could figure it out and do it. And so he did. He did a really good job at about a third, or I don't know, a fraction of the price of, so we don't know what the result will be, but I feel good about we've done what we can and done so at a very economical rate. Another one is under personnel. I wanted to mention that we had a recent, there's been a number, you often see this, the Asher and ACOSH, the Alaska State Commission for Human Rights, and Alaska's version of OSHA. It's not unique to Seward that they do investigations. Somebody will make a complaint and they do their due diligence. It's a good system in that way, is that they follow up on it. And so there's often one of those running in the background. And our approach is generally to work pretty hard at the beginning, provide all the information, all the argument they need, and try to just hit those hard at the outset. And it's usually pretty successful. And this past month, another one was dismissed. And it takes a lot of staff time and a lot of time from our office, but better to just hit it hard and get it taken care of than have it drag on. The last thing is the McDonald case, and I mentioned that last time. So far between the trial and the previous motion, we have cumulative fines of, I think it's $24,700 against Mr. McDonald, and that's a good result. The next step will be a motion for attorney's fees, and it's not, the court has to issue a judgment, which it hasn't done yet. At that point, that triggers the motion for attorney's fees. So I don't know what we'll ask for full fees, and that could be somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $20,000. I just don't have that figure in front of me, but so that's progressing along as it should be, but it's going to be another probably month or two before we have a final figure, final package there. So that's a couple of high points.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you. Questions for the attorney? We're a quiet bunch tonight, but thank you for the good work
You're welcome.
and for the drive down. It is always sunny in Seward. I can't-
That's what I figured, yeah.
Don't be so surprised, okay? Okay, so we have no proclamations, no presentations, and a few other things we don't have, so it brings us all the way to public hearings. And we have 3 of those. And when it comes to public hearings, there's a sign up for each one, but I will take shows of hands if you didn't sign up, and we'll tell you when that time is. You'll get 5 minutes to speak about that particular item. So what I'll need first is, we have 2 ordinances for enactment. And the first one is Ordinance 2024-011. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that in for the record?
Ordinance 2024-011, amending Seward City Code 8.05.045, hours of sale for alcoholic beverages.
Okay, and you'll see that on page 43 of the packet. And I'd ask for a motion to enact and a second, please.
I'll move for the enactment of ordinance 2024-011.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration, what you got?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This proposed ordinance would amend the hours of sale for alcoholic beverages to start at 8 a.m. rather than 10 a.m. And I will invite Councilmember Calhoun to add any additional information he would like to that.
Councilmember Calhoun?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I brought this forward originally. I was approached by a local business owner to consider this, and with us being the type of community we are, particularly in the summertime with the visitor industry, it seemed to make some sense when I was told by numbers of business owners that there were people that cruise around in Seward early in the morning and maybe looking for a place to stop in, meet some locals, have a coffee in Bailey's or something like that. So it seemed to make some sense to allow businesses to maybe capture that market if they chose to. Obviously, nobody would have to do this. And one other thought was, being in Alaska, the first round of football games start at 9 a.m. And if anybody wanted to go to a local establishment and watch a game, they were not able to do that until 10. So that's just a couple of the thoughts on that.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add, Madam City Manager?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2024-011. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody has signed in.
Okay, is there anyone out there that wants to, and you know the routine?
Don't worry, just outside the city limits. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So, being downtown since I've been retired, you see a lot of cruise passengers walking around looking for some place to come in and have a beverage or breakfast and a Bloody Mary or whatever. But there's been a lot and they got no place to go. So I think this is a good ordinance. It's up to businesses if they want to open or not. So I think it'd be a good thing for the city and it'd add to the tax base.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else out there that wants to come on up?
Becky Dunn, Inside the City. I'm looking at it from a different approach. Seems like everybody's mentioned catering to the tourists a lot, but there's locals that work nights too and may want to go have a drink in the morning. I remember working nights and going out for breakfast and wanting to drink my breakfast. So, though we did get really funny looks the time we had a pajama party the night before and we showed up for breakfast in pajamas, but I can look at it from that way too, that it's good to have a lot of people work nights too.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Does anyone have any comments, questions? Councilmember Barnwell.
I got a feeling I'll probably be in the minority on this, but I just want to go out, I just want to say that I'm not a big fan of it. I think we have enough, our culture has a problem with alcohol in some ways, and I'm just not a big fan of encouraging more consumption, especially at 8 in the morning. I think 10 is reasonable, and I know it's their choice to go in and get that drink at 8 in the morning, and they don't have to get that, but it sends a message to our kids, it sends a message in our culture that that I'm just not a big fan of, so I just want to put that on the record.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask if anyone knows, I had heard that Anchorage just recently passed something like this. Am I correct in that?
You are, and I just can't remember what they did. Yeah.
But it was earlier like that,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, it is.
The city has the ability to make the rule anywhere up to 8 a.m. because that's the Alaska state regulations, and I think Anchorage did that recently as well.
Sure, okay. Vice Mayor, I was saying.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to mention, I think I was reading the article on that, and that it was a beer and wine and kind of mostly addressed towards restaurants, not clubs or the such.
Any more comments or questions? Ready to vote? I think we're ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2024-011. Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
No.
Wells?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance has been enacted.
Okay, thank you. Our second ordinance for enactment that needs a public hearing is ordinance 2024-012. And when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you please read that?
Ordinance 2024-012, amending Seward City Code Title III Personnel Anniversary Date Definition.
Okay, and that's on page 49 of the packet. I'd need a motion to enact in a second, please.
I'll move for the enactment of ordinance 2024-012.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This ordinance change would change the date of your anniversary in each of the positions that you take in the city. So for example, currently as the ordinance states, your anniversary date is the date you finish your 180-day probation once you're hired from the job. So if you are promoted or change departments at all, that date does not change. I wrote out an example so that I could be sure that I get it right. But if you start your job and get off probation in January, then I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess up. So if you start your new job and you get off probation in July, it'll be a year until you're reviewed. But then if you also change departments and your new hire date is September, say, you'll still be reviewed in July. And this sometimes throws people's evaluation cycles off, throws their increase in pay cycles off as well. So we're moving towards having all of the anniversary dates be aligned with the position that you are in at that moment, not the position you were initially hired for when you joined the city. So it's correlated to the position that you were in at that moment.
Okay.
A little confusing, so I apologize if I didn't spell that out, but.
All right, thank you. We might have questions
Yeah.
after, we'll go to the public hearing first, if that's all right, please.
Well, I guess.
Okay, so I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2024-012. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody signed in.
Okay, is there anyone out there in the public that wants to speak to this one? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. So, the first hand up I saw was Councilmember West.
So my question is, if you have been in the position for 9 months and you're doing such an amazing job that another promotional type position opens, and the people that you work with are like, hey man, you should try, and then would you possibly think to yourself, well, I really don't want to change positions or get promoted because now my anniversary date's going to change? Am I understanding that correctly?
So when you're promoted positions, you do have to do the 180-day probation again. So in that situation, you'd be promoted, and then you would have 180 days. You would get a pay bump at the end of those 180 days, and then your new position would start from that day. So you would still have that 1 year cycle. So it would reset so that you're on that same cycle, but within 6 months or 180 days, you would see that bump again.
So if I've been in a position for 11 months and I have an opportunity to be promoted, I may say no, correct? Because I'm about to hit my anniversary date and my raise and my stuff in the position I'm currently in?
I would say that if you have the opportunity to be promoted, then you're going to have a grade jump as well.
Sure.
So that would overcome the single step jump.
Okay.
So this is really helpful too for people who do lateral movements or in some cases step back into positions so that they can get onto that schedule of getting their pay bump in a quicker fashion rather than waiting that extra 2 or 3 months.
Go ahead.
Just final follow-up. Yeah. Can you give me an example of when it would be a negative for an employee?
Yeah, so something that we looked through and going forward with this, we looked in at the different scenarios, and there's about 7 people currently hired that this would impact because of changing positions in different departments or getting promotions. And for some people, it does the exact opposite. It adds, instead of taking 2 months off, it adds them. But we have a memo drafted ready to send out that anybody who's in that position can choose which date that they would like, so that moving forward, this will be everybody's, it'll be a uniform way of doing things. So there are a few people that it might impact negatively right here at the start, but moving forward, we wouldn't have to see that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Good answer. Yeah, Councilmember.
So if I understand it right, you're saying when they promote, they have 180-day probation, and then off probation, that's when their anniversary date starts?
Yes.
So they're working in that position for 180 days, and their anniversary date starts at the end of probation and not the date they start?
So there's a difference between your hire date and your anniversary date. The hire date is the date that we utilize for our PERS and our retirement positions. Our anniversary date is the day that you become a regular full-time employee, and that is at the end of your 180-day probation by code and through our negotiations with our union.
But they have to work those 180 days, and then their anniversary date starts, not the date that they were hired for that position on probation.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, any other questions? It took me a while to wrap my brain around it, but it sounds like this is cleaning up something that has been a problem for people, so part of what we're trying to fix, right? Okay, are we ready to vote? I think we are, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2024-012. Finch,
No.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance has been enacted.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a public hearing on a resolution, and it is Resolution 2024-041. When you're ready, Mr. City Manager, could you please read that?
So, Mr. City Manager.
I mean, Mr. Whatever you are. See, I knew it. I just built that in. You've just been promoted. Your start date is not. Mr. Clerk, sorry. I was just reading a note to the city manager, sorry.
From the city manager.
Yeah.
Resolution 2024-041, authorizing the city manager to negotiate a land swap for a portion of city property at 1000 Hemlock Avenue in exchange for a portion of private property at 2405 Seward Highway.
Okay, and that's on page 54 of the packet. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of resolution 2024-041.
I'll second.
Oh, been moved and seconded. And so now I will turn it over to the city manager to give.
Thank you, Madam
Sorry.
Mayor. I am actually going to invite our Public Works Director, Doug, up to speak to this, since it is in his purview.
All right.
Madam Mayor, City Council, members of the audience, just wanted to go through this. This was something that came up when the Gillespies were first selling that property. We were actually looking at it for the shop at one point, and we have a sliver of land, if you look at the map included there, that goes from the highway at a very narrow point and then gets up halfway up that edge there. The city owns that sliver of land, and then behind it is the properties in question that are going to the north. When I looked at that little sliver of land doesn't help us at the city. We can't build on it, we can't utilize it for much of anything. There's an entrance there, a driveway that they put in years ago that they're not really able to use legally, put in just to kind of use, but it really bodes well for that property to do a swap. So my idea was, let's acre for acre, foot for foot, value, let's see if we can come up with, if we give them so much of this pie shape, then their lot cuts into our snow dump. And if we slice the same amount off that to do a swap, it helps us have a straight in. We're really neck down where we can kind of come in at our driveway through our property. It just makes sense to kind of put those together. And as we discussed it and brought it out to both the Gillespies and the new owners, they were both very excited. That sounded like something they could further develop into something else that would help us also on our quest wherever we go with the snow dump. So it looked like a pretty good win-win and brought it out. It seems like the Community Development Administration, I think we're all pretty much in favor of it. It's a pretty good thing, and it'll, I think, especially if they're going to bring the utilities down to their lot to then add some, they had a couple like duplex, fourplex type things on the edge on Hemlock, and then their whole business going in as the storage. So I think it's win-win, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Should we have questions or wait until the public hearing? Do you mind just hanging out and we'll do the public hearing and then we'll see if there's questions? Okay. I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2024-041. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody signed in.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. I'll close the public hearing and come on back, Doug. And council comes to us now. Are there questions for administration or Doug on this? we all understand what's going on. We've studied this. Okay, are we ready to vote? I think we're ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Voting
Mr. Clerk?
on the approval of Resolution 2024-041. Finch,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay. And that brings us down to new business resolutions. There is one resolution. It is Resolution 2024-042. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk, would you please read that?
Resolution 2024-042, authorizing the city manager to upgrade the exterior doors on main entrance of the Seward Community Library and Museum with ADA-compliant sliding doors using a combination of donated and appropriating funds.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 64. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2024-042.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution would authorize us to upgrade the exterior doors on the main entrance of the library. Currently, they are ADA compliant, but it is a bit difficult to maneuver. The clerk created a really great diagram on page 78 of your package that showcases you have to go to the left-hand side and hit the handicap button and then navigate around the open doors to enter. And it's also difficult for many in wheelchairs or mobility devices to navigate through those doors. The replacement doors would be sliding doors to be opened, and this is also a lot better with our high winds and weather, so that they slide open and close quickly rather than opening and then getting stuck open in the wind. Something I would really like to highlight is that of the $32,947 that this is quoted to cost, $29,259 are from donated funds. So we're only allocating about $3,500 from the general fund to complete this project. The rest are donated funds.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions, comments? Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. My question is, what happens with the old doors and the old framing? Because the glass and everything is in still great condition, and it still will be when they take it apart.
That is a good question for the Public Works Director and I to talk about tomorrow. Maybe find a good solution and a way to reutilize those.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say, if we can't repurpose them,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's multiple businesses in our community that would appreciate that for some beautification or upgrades to their buildings.
Great. Other questions or comments on this? I think it's remarkable that funds have been donated for this, and that it's definitely an improvement. We had a presentation by a person couple years ago now about the handicap access, and that was one of the big problems at that entrance, was hitting the button and then managing to get around because the door opens upon you and you have to back up and, like that. So this will be, for a building that gets a lot of use, this will be a very good thing, I think. Are we ready to vote? Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-042. Osinga,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Excellent. Okay, so now we have the other new business. And the first item is to discuss wells and septic tanks within the city limits. And administration, do you want to give us some direction on this?
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you may have also noticed that I've scheduled a work session for the same topic at our next meeting date on August 26th. And my goal with this discussion item is to talk about what information the council would like to know or need to know from administration to move forward with their decision or discussion about whether or not to allow wells and septic inside city limits. So while this is a very big and robust conversation, the work session will allow for that, and this is an opportunity for you to tell administration what information you need to make that decision, whether it's regulations from other municipalities, impacts on fire, impacts on our current infrastructure. What thoughts come to mind as you think about wells and septic inside city limits?
Okay. Who wants to start? Councilmember Finch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to see the, say like Soldotna and Anchorage's codes on septic and the wells. I mean, with our infrastructure being like it is, and hopefully we're growing, hopefully the town's gonna outgrow the infrastructure. We need to look at alternative ways of doing this.
Okay, thank you. I would like to find out how many lots would be affected by this. I mean, just, it doesn't have to be exact, but, you know, more than 10 or, you know, like that kind of thing. Vice Mayor Osenga.
So I would be curious to know about any safety protocols that have to be followed if you're not on a city system of water or hydrant kind of thing.
So that is a big concern of the fire department, I know, is that without water and sewer in those areas, we would not have fire hydrants.
Right.
So something to think about as we move forward in these discussions.
And maybe how that's addressed in other communities. I would get at.
Right, yeah, how it's addressed.
Sorry.
Councilmember West.
To add to that, if we can find out what the industry average, I guess you could say, for how far a home can be from a fire extinguisher, or fire hydrant, sorry. And because the last thing we want, obviously, is a whole community of homes and there's no way to put out a fire. There's no local fire hydrant.
And I have been told that the real issue with our local fire department in this is that we don't have a tanker truck.
So currently we have fire hydrants, so we
Right.
don't need a tanker
Right.
truck, but in situations like this, a tanker truck would be utilized and we don't have one because we have fire hydrants.
So it's something to be discussed at the work session for sure. Councilmember Finch.
And to counter that, one good earthquake will take out all the fire hydrants.
Oh,
You
yeah.
need a tanker truck. Either way, we need a tanker truck.
Councilmember Barnwell. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, it would be interesting to talk to planning and zoning about if we could set aside certain areas, for instance, I think we're talking about the, well, whatever area we're talking about for this, there may be multiple areas. Is that a particular zoning, could we classify that in a separate zoning district so that we didn't open up the whole city to the possibility of people building or digging a well or a septic?
Yeah.
And then the other one I would like to know is just in that particular region in Forest Acres, for instance, how reasonable are septic tanks in that flood zone, just to make sure we're not, I don't know, we're putting ourselves in liability for that. And then I would also like to have Bear Creek Fire Department kind of chime in on their ability to coordinate with the sewer fire department with their tanker truck and how onerous that would be, or if that's something that they've already worked out.
Yeah, so to clarify, we do have mutual aid agreements with Bear Creek and Lowell Point Fire Department as well. So if there was a fire out there and Bear Creek's tank was not busy doing something else, I'm looking to Deputy Chief to make sure I'm saying this correctly, they would show up, but their first priority will always be the Bear Creek service area.
Councilmember.
Thank you. I guess also I'd like to hear from the city attorney on what the liability issues are going to be for homes outside of our ability to fight fires. Are we still, required and responsible?
Yeah.
And speaking of all of that, you asked for this.
I know, I'm so happy this is working.
This is important because they can come with this for the work session and then we'll have a much better and well-informed discussion. But I'd like to know, I mean, everybody has to have fire insurance and maybe talk to a couple insurance agents and see what it would cost people if they would be in this position without hydrants and without a tanker truck. Just so we know what we're putting people into if we're going to do this, I think, public discussion. Anything else for that? If you think of anything in the next few days, we could get a hold of these guys before they develop it.
I would also like to put that out to the public as well. If there's anything that you can thought of that you would like to send in, you can email it to the city manager at ksorensen@cityofseward.net.
There you go. Okay,
So just
yes,
one thing
Councilmember
real quick,
Calhoun.
and I've got a lot of things, but it's all going to come out in the work session anyway. The one thing I do want to make sure is we don't just focus on Forest Acres.
Yeah.
Because
Yes, thank you.
there are other properties inside the
Yep.
city that can fall into this.
Right. And then for the public, that I see some might be here to think they would be speaking on this. This isn't the time, at the work session it will be, but at the end of this, when we're done with the business, which is really soon, there's 5-minute slots to speak, so you'll have a chance then and we'll hear you then, okay? Because we're just not set up to dialogue during this, I'm sorry. Any other discussion on that? Okay, so then our second discussion item is to discuss the work session calendar, which you will find on page 79. And I know there's one little typo in there, but Madam City Manager, do you want to say anything about it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I brought forward this discussion item just as we look forward at the next few months with our budget kickoff happening soon. I copied the schedule from the last budget cycle pretty closely with the finance director and brought that forward, but I also recognize that that was 2 years ago and schedules change. So I wanted to take this moment to look through this, see if anything stands out as a moment when multiple council members would not be available for budget items, and then also to move forward and give any council members an opportunity to give direction on what work sessions or discussion items they would like to see coming up as we wrap up the 2024 year. One thing that I would like to note to change is that first date in November should be November 18th as well. That is when the first required public hearing and motion to adopt. It will be at that same meeting.
So that is also, it's up at the top and down at the
Yes.
date. So it's November 18th, not the 12th.
Yes.
I caught that.
And that, just a note here, that was fixed for the council packet that was posted on the website.
Okay.
You just happen to have an early
Yeah.
printed version.
Okay. Oh, okay. So what we have, as far as work sessions at the top, the upcoming well septic discussion, and then it becomes budget things on those dates.
We also-
But then below that, you've suggested some potential work sessions for probably after all of this, I would think, or
And so that's part of the
anytime we
discussion as
want.
well. I know
some kind
that the airport update is something that we've heard some input from the community, so I wanted to gauge when you would like to have that conversation. An apartment complex work session is something that Jason and I have kind of been brainstorming for a while now, so instead of bombarding you with a bunch of work sessions, I wanted to gauge your opinion on when and how often.
Any thoughts on that? Councilmember Calhoun?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I know it's a work session, maybe we could get scheduled in. It would have to be probably a discussion item first. But I would like to see one on, for us to take a look at moving on a sale of Providence assets to Providence, based on some of the financials that we've gotten, where we have the funds to pay the bond off in '26. And I think it might be a good time to get into the discussion and talk about finding a firm that can evaluate that kind of thing and that, but I think a work session on that subject wouldn't be a bad idea.
Would you be willing to put it off until after the budget? Because we're getting kind of, or would you want to squish it in during the budget time, or do you have a preference, just to give some direction to?
Personally, I'd like to squish it in, but that may not be what the rest of the council wants, so that's why I just wanted to bring that up and see if we could get approval on that.
Valid discussion. I'm seeing some nods, so a work session, if we can find a place for it.
We can find a place. We'll probably do a similar type thing. We'll do a discussion item first and then lead into a work session, just because that is also a big topic to chomp into.
Okay. I think the airport update, anytime we can do it. We've waited a long time, and it would be good to know what's going to happen out there.
Great.
Any other input? Yes, Councilor.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to, before budgeting, I'd like to see a work session on the ADA fishing we discussed last meeting to see if we can squeeze something out of the budget to start working on that so ADA doesn't show up and tell us what we're going to do.
Any others? Councilmember
Are we
Byrne?
talking about dates right now, or are we just talking about topics?
Topics, I believe.
Okay, because I do have a problem with some of the dates here, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, well, are there other topics right now? Okay, so how can we do the date thing? I mean, somebody's going to miss some of these. I pointed out to one council member who was going to miss some that we'll have the information, everything is on YouTube. So as far as work sessions, you can follow along pretty easily even if you're gone, as long as we have a quorum. But you would be really tasked with doing that, I would think, while you're gone, but follow and then you could, so. Do you want us to, I don't know if publicly people want to say when they're going to be gone, so.
Yeah, if I could have if there is a chunk of this time, if you're, say, missing October 14th to October 28th, and you wanted to let me know that, you can send me an email or text message, and I may come back with a slightly modified. But I also would like to, are Mondays and Tuesdays good to do that as well, if we move forward with the schedule? Okay. So that was a big thought, too, is if somebody had something come up on Tuesday nights, I wanted to adjust that now. Great. So if there's a big chunk that you are missing, please reach out and let me know, and we can tweak some of those dates so that there's some work sessions that you can attend. But otherwise, we'll go forward with Monday, Tuesday schedule, similar to last time.
Some of us never go anywhere, and I'll be, Okay, any other input from council on this? If you think of things, we can dialogue all the time and put another couple discussion items on the next meeting to see if we really want to do certain ones or stuff too.
Great.
Okay, I've got, the next thing was, this is all part of it.
I got one more discussion item.
Yeah, city manager travel.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So as we are approaching the 25-26 budget cycle, I kind of wanted to shake out the blanket on the travel that the city manager does. We've been repeating a lot of these conferences and trips, and I think they're all really worthwhile. But in a recent evaluation, council also recommended that I start attending Seatrade, the cruise ship conference in Miami annually. So I just wanted to do a little gauge to make sure we're all on the same page as I move forward with budgeting. Currently, the city manager's office budgets $25,000 annually for travel, and we come in significantly under that each year. So I think adding Seatrade and attending that in Miami would be really helpful as we move forward with some of the changes we're seeing in the cruise ship industry. But I also want to see if you agree, before I budget for it.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so that brings us to the items that we moved from the consent agenda. Is everyone okay without a break at this point? We're getting close.
Yep.
Okay, and this would be to vote on the applicants for PAC cab, and we have 3 now. And Mr. Clerk, do you want to just give some direction on this voting?
Yes. So I have the paper vote sheets here, and I'll just hand them to Councilmember Barnwell. Take one, pass them down. You can vote for no more than 2 on there, and then pass them back to me, and I'll read out the results.
Okay. And so, is everyone clear? Okay. And then you need to sign it, because it becomes public record, just so as you know. There's 3. So there should be 6 ballots coming your way.
Okay, I have 6 ballots. I'm going to start reading the results.
Oh, and let me just point out, 4 is the magic number. So
4 votes to be
4
appointed.
votes will,
Jesse Groom, Norm Regis. Becky Dunn, Norm Regis. Jesse Groom, Norm Regis. Jesse Groom, Norm Regis. Jesse Groom, Norm Regis. And Jesse Groom, Norm Regis. So Norm has 6, Becky has 1, and Jesse has 5.
okay, so that would mean that Norm Regis and Jesse Groom are appointed to PACCAB. And I want to thank the applicants. This is good. We'll have a full group, and they begin meeting again when?
September.
Okay, in September, so welcome. And I believe that's all of our business. You'll see some minutes in the packet. Our next meeting on August 26th, we have a work session at 6, and the topic is the wells and septic tanks within the city limits. So that would be a time for people to come and public can dialogue with that. And then the regular meeting would be at 7 at that time. And there's also Providence financial information in the packet on page 87. And so this brings us to citizen comments, and this is the 5-minute limit time, and there's no sign up. I'll just take show of hands, and it's the same routine, name and inside or outside the city limits, so you get up to 5 minutes on any topic. So does anyone wish to speak? Come on up.
Kevin Quipper, again, city limits. So I can clear up some misunderstandings perhaps on Anchorage water laws, well laws. In Anchorage, if you can meet the state required setbacks from your sewer main or your septic, you're allowed to drill a well anywhere within the city limits of Anchorage, 1,707 square miles. You're encouraged to do that in some areas where they can't afford to run the water because it's larger rock, like up above Potter Marsh. Under Alaska water law, you have water rights. In other words, you own the water on your property. So unless Seward had an ordinance that said you cannot drill a well in Seward, I could contact a driller and have him drill a well on my lot, provided I met the state requirements for setbacks. Alpine Drilling, Mark Harper, drilled one of Seward's wells, and I talked with him, and he said that there is no chance of contamination of the city aquifer because everything else in the city is downslope from the city wells. Sullivan Well Drilling, if you look up their webpage in Chudiak, you'll see that they're drilling a water well in downtown Anchorage right next to one of the high-rise buildings. In Anchorage, your car washes, nurseries, and laundromats all drill wells if they're not impinging on someone else's setback on septic system. So the rule in Anchorage is you have to be able to give them a plat map that shows that you have the 100-foot setback from your septic and your neighbor's septic. Anchorage and North Pole are the only 2 communities in Alaska that have any well drilling restrictions, and that's the extent of the well drilling restrictions in Anchorage. Some communities in Alaska are concerned because they do have arsenic in their water, so they worry about wells. They don't say you can't drill them, but they do say you have to test them. So if you drill one, you have arsenic, then obviously it's not a good well. So I would suggest looking at the webpage, the gallery for Sullivan Drilling in Chudiak. I talked with Charity Bear, who's at PD and DEC in Solana, and showed her the plat map that I got from the assessor in Solana on the forest acre property not concerned with. and she could see no reason why any of those property owners couldn't drill wells. Her suggestion, however, was that those people who have combined half-acre lots into 1 acre or 1.5 acre in one instance, dissolve the boundary between the half-acre lots so that the lot isn't sold at some time and impinge on a setback for a new owner. So that was her suggestion, but she could see no reason why they weren't wells. I had my property taxes reduced because my property is listed as undevelopable because the city didn't have water, wouldn't allow a well. So my property taxes that I paid last month were $83.18 because the property was knocked down to $600 in value as undevelopable. So that's all, but I will answer questions. I've got a minute and a half.
Well, we don't have questions at this time, so.
Okay.
Sorry. Anyone else wishing to speak? I just need a hand.
Doug Chesler, Public Works Director inside city limits. I just had a few things that we were discussing and you were noting of what to go through. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget to include streets in any of these developments, wherever they are. If somebody gets down a platted right-of-way and there's down in there and that street's not built to a standard, it's pretty hard to expect any road maintenance, even deliveries type of things going down that road. But as a city resident, you expect that because you're paying city taxes, but if that road's not built, we just need them built to a standard so we can work them and get down it. And then, yeah, I think it's just going to be a good discussion on figuring out just how, what, where, and what can happen with the DEC or not. I think things are being checked out on all fronts, so hopefully we'll get to the right decision and get it going.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, come on up.
Jesse Groom, I live outside the city limits. I just want to thank the council for the appointment on the board. We have 2 other great candidates here to choose from, so I just want to give you guys my thanks.
Thank you. Good to put a face there. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it to council and administration comments and responses to citizen comments. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say thank you for all the great discussion tonight. I really appreciate it, and I am excited for the upcoming work session. I also want to give one more big thank you to the whole Public Works team as we're coming off that big rainstorm, and a thank you to all of the PACAB applicants and the new PACAB appointees.
Mr. Bickley.
The only comment I have is if you have not had a chance to go up to the high school and look at the new football field, they had the first practice on the turf today, and so it looks amazing. And then they just have to put the track in now, so they're hoping that we get some nice weather windows to be able to get that knocked out here before winter time. But that's been like we've been waiting for that project for like decades. And so it is just a great thing to see that we have that quality of a field there now, and so just excited about that. And if you haven't had a chance, go check it out.
With that, I would also like to add a big thank you to Metco, who was really helpful in all of the Lowell Creek, and who is also building that track. So it was a good reminder. Thank you to Metco and their whole crew.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnwell, start with you.
Yeah, that track is really impressive, and it has been a long haul. I mean, anytime people touch that track, especially in the fall or spring, it just falls apart. So it'll be fun to see how that holds up, probably forever from what it looks like. And Metco, amazing engineering doing that. I was pretty impressed. Public Works, thanks for all the work. It goes out to all of them. It was pretty impressive during that flooding event how efficient the city was, and I really appreciate that work. I'm also excited about the work sessions. I think this Providence, talking about Providence will be really interesting, and the airport, I'm really I really want to get the public's input on the airport and figure out where we're going with that. And I did meet the Over Hero kids, and thanks City Clerk and his department, his department. I'm getting confused in it. For all the work you guys put into that. There was a great group of kids, and that was fun to see Chris and the kids.
Yeah, thank you. Jody and Karen have been doing a lot of work as well. Really appreciate them stepping in to show the kids a good time.
All right, thanks.
That's it. Okay, Councilmember Finch.
I'd like to thank the Public Works and Metco for in town, plus Metco out of town. Everybody was chewing up a lot of equipment, alternators, starters, everything. So thank you guys for that, long hours. And thanks to everybody that applied for PACAP. Football field, the Ridge Sewer's been cranking out these star athletes. Let's see what happens on the football field now.
That's it. Okay, Councilmember Wells.
Great. So obviously echo everything everybody else has said, but I want to welcome Taylor and his family back to Alaska, and thank you for helping us keep this together. And the Over Hero Students Exchange Program, I think, is amazing. I'm really excited to see that we had students come again from Over Hero, and we had some students exchange in the process. Can guarantee what they're going to experience in Over Hero will be with them for the rest of their lives in such a positive fashion. Of course, thank you to all the city employees for everything that you do. We wouldn't have the community we have if it wasn't for you. And congratulations to the new PACAB appointees, and thank you to all the applicants. It's an extremely important process, and we really are grateful. And regarding the wells in the city, my concerns are fire hydrant access, the city's liability in the event of a fire, road access, and I know how unfortunate it is for a person's property to be devalued. I have been in a similar position like that before, but we have to think about the community as a whole. And other than that, everybody have a great rest of your summer, what's left of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Calhoun.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to add a lot to what everybody else has said. I'll just say I agree with all of those comments, or most of them anyway. The one thing I will say, though, is happy birthday to my wife, Claire. It's her birthday tonight, and I'm here.
But not for long. Okay, Vice Mayor Wilsinga.
Yeah, obviously, thanks to Public Works and Metco for keeping our tunnel outflow clear and water flowing out where it needed to get to. Thank you to all those who donated for the replacement of our library door. That's a pretty big achievement. Welcome Norm and Jesse to the PACAB. I'd like to also thank Becky for her service on that committee. And good luck to all Derby participants.
Okay. Well, what they said, yeah, congratulations and welcome to the PACAB members, and thanks for applying. Public Works, you rock. That was sort of a pun, but I guess I worked on that too. No, just kidding. I do have something in addition, though. I'll have a proclamation at our next meeting, but I want you to think ahead because Founders Day is coming, and as RBHS president, it's a big deal for us museum historical people. But Founders Day is always August 28th because that's the day we were founded. And so this year it falls on a Wednesday, and we're going to have the celebration in the atrium and the museum at the building there because there's going to be an exhibit on the Holocaust in the community room. But we're going to have cake, the usual beverages and cake. Museum will be open. I'll play old-timey stuff on the pump organ. I mean, on the organ, pump organ. And we also are apparently having a guest group of musicians that will be playing some stuff too, which I'll leave that as a surprise till next meeting, and then I'll tell you who it is. Not like headliners or anything, locals, okay? But Founders Day for us in the RBHS is a big deal, and so you'll hear more about that. Anything else? Good of the order. Okay.
Just one
Yeah, I knew it. He wants to get home. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to remind everybody that early voting is going on.
Thank you, that was.
And it's the Alaska primary voting, so we don't have, and I don't mean this as a negative, it just kind of sounds that way. We don't always have a great percentage of turnout in our elections here. And so I would just like to see more people get involved and see if we can't raise our turnout and get above the 22 to 24% that we usually get. Because it is important, even though it's just a primary, in some people's minds, it's important. So just please consider that. And I apologize, Chris, the hours here?
Yeah, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. right here in council chambers, Monday through Friday, or up until election day.
And the actual in-person voting, if you like to go on voting day, is the 20th, so, down here.
That's all in there, thanks.
Okay, and anything else? Okay, with that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:11.